Welcome back to the channel, guys. As you can see, it's a fantastic day today. The rain seems to have disappeared at the moment, so we've got the Lambo out on this Saturday morning. So you are watching Barham Engines.
If I do this, mate.
Paul's having a little sweep
Yeah.
up that. We'll just get that on camera because you don't see that very often.
You're going to see that often. You can save this video clip on your phone. You can watch it every night.
I will do, don't you worry. Just to remind me that you do actually do it.
Well, you know, we found a broom that's light enough for me now.
This is the V8 for the MGB, is that right?
Something like that, yeah, MGB Rover.
Now this engine, as I've said to you before, has apparently only done about 30,000 miles, but being an aluminium block with steel studs and what have you, got plenty of broken studs, Paul.
It's done about 300,000 miles, I think.
Yeah.
Might as well have.
Yeah, it seems like it. So Paul's been, for the last, well, for certainly this morning, a bit of yesterday, he's been drilling out broken studs.
We've got the engine mount studs here.
The engine mount studs are broken off. He's been drilling them out, putting heli coils in.
So both that one and the other side.
Couple in the front cover.
Yeah, there's one this side and one that side.
So
I don't know what these are, or what they use bolt to, but yeah, that took a bit of time.
So half a dozen broken studs.
And now we have the front cover, which has got 2 broken studs, or 3, or 4.
4 broken studs.
They might come out of stud extractors.
What's that one there? Is that a dowel?
That's a dowel, yeah, but that was that big stud or bolt that we had to drill out in there.
Ah.
And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that should punch out of there then, I would have thought.
We'd hope so, wouldn't you?
Maybe. But yeah, these are the problems you run into when you've got aluminium and steel studs. Is it not, Paul?
It's just a pain in the arse, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Oh, and
But he's give the block a good clean, so...
bolt stuck in that as well.
Oh, great.
This was just about 3 or 4 hours just in drilling studs and bolts out.
Excellent, just what you want. But yeah, he's give it a good clean. So what is it, face the block, mate? Face both faces, rebore it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, apart from
all the broken studs.
Yeah, it's come out alright. It needs another clean, obviously, but it's for a first clean, it's come out nice. There's no dirt in it, really.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that.
Not too bad. Cam bearings look all like new, really. Right, everybody. I just want to thank you for all your comments in the last video regarding the MGB. So we have got the pistons out. A lot of you guys in the comments said that it's definitely going to be that PCV valve. I did notice a lot of comments saying, why wouldn't you do a compression test, a leak down test, etc., before you take the engine to bits? Now, the reason for that is the first thing we've done is obviously check that PCV valve. We got back to the customer and he's convinced that it's nothing to do with that. He sort of went through his explanation as to why. But what you've got to remember is we've explained to the customer that we go through this process quite a lot where you get a symptom from the engine, like there's a problem with the engine, and the first thing people do is hand the vehicle back or the engine back and say, it's an engine issue, you did the engine. So whatever issues there is around the engine, we can't be there for too long. At the end of the day, that's really the job for the customer or the garage. We supplied the basic engine at the end of the day. We have had this vehicle in and we've checked the PCV valve and it's broke. The customer didn't seem to think it was that. So the only thing we can do at this stage is take the head off. Now, another reason why the vehicle was in is because it had a slight oil leak, and it had an oil leak behind the breather panel on the side of the block. So this panel here, obviously that is the box that goes up to the PCV valve, and you can see we had a cork gasket on there and it has been leaking. Now, whether that is anything to do with the engine breathing, I don't know, because the other one's perfect, just seems a little bit odd. I noticed a couple of you guys said that you can get rubber gaskets for that, and that will solve that problem. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to put the rubber ones on there. We had to take the manifold off, etc., to get to that anyway. So I said, save any arguments as to what the problem is. We'll just check our bit. So we took the head off. It's fortunately not too much of a job to take the sump down and take the pistons out. So that's what we've done. It's only going to be the head or the pistons or the rings to give that sort of problem. engine-wise and what we did. So if we check that, that eliminates that problem. If it turns out it's nothing to do with us, you know, we have informed the customer that obviously he's not the only one. We get this all the time. There has to be a charge for the labour involved and obviously any parts. So if we had just took the head off and not took the pistons out, once I informed him that there was going to be a charge, obviously, for our work if it didn't turn out to be the engine, he said, I just want it back, just put the head back on. I said, no, we've got the head off now. If we just put that back on without taking the pistons out and checking our bit, then he could get it back. We could still have the smoking issue, and we're going to go through the whole process again. So at least if we check it at this point, there's no arguing then. So we have got the pistons out, and I've got the sump over here. Obviously the car's still over Stuart's. Firstly, here's the sump, and you can see the oil in the bottom doesn't look like oil that's done about 50 miles. It's, I don't know, it just seems a bit gloopy. And it does smell quite fuely, to be honest with you. Now, here are the pistons. As you can see, they look absolutely brand new, because they are. All the bearings seem to be wearing okay. The rings, usually what we look for in problems with rings is obviously the ring tension, especially the oil control ring. We look for, obviously, the ring gap. That will tell us how much the ring's sort of worn compared to when we put them in. We feel down the rings and make sure they're not razor sharp. If they're razor sharp, then you know the rings have been wearing. You can actually visibly see sort of light and dark areas on the rings where they have been, where they're sort of bedding in. Bear in mind, this has only done 50 miles. Ring lands are all good. We've tried a ring from each set down the bore, absolutely fine. The bores look perfect, as I showed you in the last video. So there is a lot of tension on these rings. The customer did say, sort of before we got the pistons out, oh, he's had bad rings before and there might be no tension in the rings. But bear in mind, there's 3 rings here plus an oil control ring. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. You can see on the top the piston's nice and clean, but it was just oily. Now, I did have 2 phone calls yesterday morning after, well, the morning following the last video, of 2 guys, that elderly gentlemen that have been in this game for years. One specialised in MGs and Jaguars back in the day. The other one was a mechanic, been doing it for years, what have you, come across, you know, loads of things like this. The MG Jag guy said it is 100% the PCV valve. He said if you think about how it works, the idea of the valve is to, while the engine's under vacuum, i.e. sort of on the overrun, coasting down a hill, the valve will shut itself. So that plunger that has broke the lug off the side there, that plunger will shut, stop the engine from drawing in oil vapour and obviously excess sort of breathing really. And then when the car is under acceleration, that valve opens and it allows the engine to breathe sufficiently enough. What happens, he says, is obviously if that has broken, it is stuck open, firstly, you are not going to be able to set those carbs up right. They're going to be running lean and you're going to have to set the carbs up rich as hell. Although it's sort of okay on the percentage on the sniffer, it's still going to be running dead rich. That fuel's going to be going past the rings because it's going to be breathing and it's going to make the oil seem a bit gloopy. Well, lo and behold, the oil is gloopy. So we're going to probably be getting a test done on that oil just to confirm that. But he said, you know, and it just makes it breathe inaccurately. He said, then what happens is it draws up oil vapour into that breather over there, and then goes into the PCV valve and then just goes into the engine and smokes like buggery. So that's what he said happens. And that is really what's all the symptoms it's giving. So I suspect he's right. But yeah, so that's how far we are at the moment with that, guys. The next step is to, on Monday morning, we're going to inform the customer as to what we found. He's going to probably want to come in and check it himself with his own eyes. So we got no issue with that. If there's any sort of query from there on, we shall probably get an engineer in and do an engineer's report, and that solves that. But yeah, as I say, it's one of those really where we want to keep the customers happy. We want to keep a nice relationship with the customer and keep their work coming. But how far do you go, guys? How much do you let it cost you at the end of the day when it isn't your problem? I think you have to be fair, clear. If it is anything to do with us whatsoever, we'll fix it, we'll pay the bill, not a problem. But you have to draw the line, and there has to be some sort of responsibility to whose fault it is at the end of the day. And if it does turn out to be the PCV valve, then maybe that should have probably all been checked before the vehicle came back to us. But yeah, we'll have a word with him Monday, and we'll go from there.
So I've got the crank in the Jeep block now. Got all the little gaskets and the rope seals in there. That's all good. And then we put the timing chain sprocket, the thrust washer, and the front pulley on with the nut on there, tightening all of that down. And that allows us to check the thrust clearance, and we have none at all. So unfortunately, because these bearings, they've got the built-in thrusts, and because they're on a dowel in the block, we're going to have to take the crank out completely, and then John's going to grind a bit off of the bearing, off of the thrusts, and put it all back together. Hopefully we'll be alright then. 3 or 4 thou of clearance there. So yeah, that's a bit of a pain, but should get that all resolved fairly sharpish. So we've had the crank out now, we've had the main bearings with the thrust built on out, and we've ground them by about 3 thou on the outer face, and now the bottom one's in there. When we sit that top one on, you can see there, got a little bit of wiggle, and having stuck the feeler gauge down there, we've got about 3 thou of end float, which is ideal really. So yeah, we can get back to it and get this one finished now. Just gonna torque up all the main caps and get the big end caps on. We'll be there with the bottom end on that one then. And then we can focus on getting the head on and getting the timing gear on. I've got the bottom end completely together on the Jeep now. We've also got it all timed up. And now I'm just putting the sump gasket and sump on. I've got to paint the front cover and the front mounts. And then, well, really we're about there. We just got to get the valve cover, whatever you want to call it on this. Need to fill the oil pump with oil and just check that that's all right. We did check it on the bench, but we'll just check it on the engine as well. Just a few little finishing touches and we'll be there with this one. Got the head on as well. It's a flat head, so there's nothing really to worry about with that other than torquing it down. But yeah, it's looking all right.
Thanks ever so much for watching, guys, and I'm sorry we're sort of a day out of sync, really. I've done a video Thursday and putting another one on today, which is Saturday, and yeah, we should be back to normal on Monday, but it's only really because of my leg. But as you can see, I'm sort of hobbling around now, getting used to it, taking my time. But thanks ever so much for watching, guys, and until another one, I will see you then. Cheers.